Hello souls and demons, and welcome back. Today's story is called I'm a Warden Between Realities, and I'm Hunting a Killer Sasquatch, Part 1 of 2, written by Cecily 1987. So, you know the drill. Sit back, grip your seats, and enjoy. I must break the silence. I must let everyone know the dangers that exist in this world and others. To start, this world is not the only world. There is another world that lays on top of it, sometimes under it. They intertwine around like snakes in mating or snakes in battle. Some places there are openings where worlds bleed through into each other. There was the world you were familiar with, Earth, the one dominated by Homo sapiens and war, the one with rudimentary space travel and complex machinery for the purpose of entertainment. The other one, well, the other one is vastly different. It's not called Earth. Its name is unable to be expressed in the human language. It's a place where reality is a strange and tangible thing, more able to be manipulated. Thoughts and the physical define one another and play off one another. The concepts intertwine like braided cords. The other world is overflowing with things extremely limited on Earth. It would be called magic, if that simplifies it for you. But of course it's much more, and some of it bleeds through the realities into Earth's realm to be used by humans. Sometimes entire entities from other realities bleed through, either by accident or on purpose. That's where I come in. I have different titles in different places, but the best way to describe my job would be a reality warden, a watcher between the worlds. I patrol the gaps between dimensions, the place where our worlds blend together, and things that don't belong slip through. See, there's a lot of reasons for creatures to sneak across the planes to enter Earth's realm. Just because Earth is low on magic, doesn't mean it doesn't have tons of ingredients magic users deeply desire. This is the reason I'm on my current assignment. It's why I'm high up in a tree in a Washington state park, scouting out the surrounding forest. Something has illegally crossed to Earth to gather spell ingredients, and I have to catch this creature before a lot of people are killed. I leap from the tree to land with ease. One of the magic runes embedded in my bandolier vibrates softly, letting me know something is amiss. I look down at my feet to see one black boot untied. I sigh and lean over to retie it. I could have easily tripped. It's always the small things I forget. The prey I'm after is a clever one, a fugitive from across the gap. He is a bane on any plane of existence he walks upon. I've been on his trail for years. I'll be sure to not let him slip away tonight. Chisar the Cruel, or Chiz to his fellow lowlifes. He traffics in illegal goods between the realms. He also traffics in people. I forgot to tell you that he is a Sasquatch, or a Bigfoot, or whatever you want to call him. They are not native to Earth. They come from large colonies across the gap. In Chizar circles, humans are in high demand. Earth may not have a lot of magic, but humans contain it within them, almost literally. Their organs and parts can be used for a myriad of magical potions and spells. Humans fetch a high price on the black market, dead or alive. Living humans can be bred for an infinite stock of magical ingredients. I may tell you about the horrors of the breeding camps, the human mills, some other time. It's a good cautionary tale, but it has no bearing on this current case. I make my way towards the cabin a mile away, a crumpled flyer in my hand. Chizar has been spotted in the area, whether from sloppiness or intentional. Now he has a group of Bigfoot hunters after him. The flyer's from a signpost back in town. It seems that the United Sasquatch Association, USA, was throwing a big party at the cabin before taking off into the forest with cameras, guns, and a lot of booze to finally catch the elusive sapien. I needed to get to the Bigfoot hunters before they actually did find him. I pray they haven't yet. They really don't want to cross paths with the Chizar the Cruel. A quick look at the United Sasquatch Association's Facebook page showed me they were at least 15 members deep at the cabin. I was surprised that many people still took Bigfoot seriously. We had done so well discrediting witnesses throughout the years. Of course, it could be the USA members were just looking for an excuse to run around in the woods with guns. I heard in town they were trying to film a pilot episode for the Travel Channel, whatever that meant. I was quickly dodging between the trees at a light jog when I heard the gunshot. It wasn't far away, and it was followed by a scream. I took a knee and tapped one of the runes on my bandolier. The magic within it activated, and my senses sharpened. It was already getting dark, but now I could see clearly. I could see subtle vibrations of bugs moving in the dirt around me, and I could smell the copper scent of gunpowder and blood. A lot of blood. I took off at a sprint now, my enhanced senses allowing me to bob and weave deftly between the trees and over the bushes. Fear and adrenaline pumped through my veins. I was afraid I was too far away, and it was too late to stop Chizar from killing again. As I got closer to the origin of the gunshot, the smell of blood and bullets was almost overwhelming. I breathed in slightly from my nose, to gather the information telling the blood was from a man further to my left. The scent told me the man was bleeding profusely, had been drenched in sweat, and had soiled himself. I broke through the underbrush to find the body. It was a bearded man decked out in camo, laying on his back staring glazed-eyed into the sky. His face was now forever frozen in a scowl of pain and terror. His right hand had a white-knuckled death grip on a bent rifle. The rifle's barrel twisted up at almost a right angle. His stomach had been ripped open with his guts grotesquely thrown about him. I could see parts of his intestines running up from his body to loop over a branch a couple feet away. Blood and viscera decorated the surrounding trees like a terrible art exhibit. It was like whoever ripped him open had thrown his insides about in a hurry, like a child digging for his favorite toy at the bottom of a toy box. I knelt down next to the desecrated man. I bent over with my head angled, so I could look into the gaping wound that used to be the dead man's chest. I found, or didn't find, what I expected. The heart was missing. The guts had been cleared out so the killer could reach up under the ribcage to secure his prize. Human hearts fetched a hefty price across the gap. It could be used in a variety of potent spells. Of course, there were more parts of the human body that could be used for spells, but the heart was the most important. Chizar must have been in a hurry. He could have stripped the body clean, but he only grabbed the most valuable part before running off. I had no doubt Chizar would come back to harvest the corpse, but right now, he was killing all the humans in the area before they got away from him. He could take his time once they were all good and dead. I breathed in deeply, and my powerful senses differentiated between a litany of smells to find the one I was looking for. I picked out the foul stench of Chizar. It was a mixture of unwashed fur, rancid sweat, and decay. I stood and faced in the direction the scent led. I said a prayer to my ancestors to help me to be able to save the survivors, if there were any. 3 minutes later, I approached the giant 2-story cabin. I quickly counted 7 vehicles out front, not counting multiple 4-wheelers and buggies. All of the tires on the vehicles had been flattened, and one car was missing a driver's side door, revealing a seat filled with a red pool of blood and mangled meat. I crouched low and began sneaking towards the door. I rubbed a rock rune on my belt to activate a noise-dampening aura around me. One of my runes was already activated. It worked by taking the scent of the surrounding area and having my body magically produce the scent instead of my own natural smell. It was good camouflage, but the spell could be easily broken if someone was aware of me, or was mentally concentrating on me. The heavy wooden double doors that were the entrance to the cabin had been bashed open. One door, now resembling kindling, had exploded violently inward and across the floor of the cabin. I stepped across the threshold carefully, trying not to crunch the wood and bits of glass underfoot. The giant common room was dark, but the scent of blood and bodily fluids was overpowering. Only the low fire in the fireplace threw dancing shadows across the horrific scene. I could make out destroyed furniture and bodies strewn all about. Balloons drifted lazily above, bumping up against the ceiling. To my right was a folding table set up to block access to the stairs. Food and drinks were set up on the table, and a banner saying "Congrats USA" on the TV show, with a Travel Channel logo and a comical Bigfoot drawing. Well, I guess my intel is old. The hunters already got the TV show deal, and they were all celebrating when Chizar rolled up and began his slaughter. There were more people here than expected. They looked like families. It was a celebration. I counted the dead and dismembered, guts torn open and hearts ripped out. It was terrible, and I felt the weight of guilt and anger pull down on me. I looked down and around at the frozen faces of terror and pain, a death mask on the murdered people. 21 men and women. Thankfully, no children. I knew Chizar was ruthless, but how did he kill so many so quickly? A back door to the cabin had been left wide open. My enhanced eyesight picked out 2 crumpled bodies laying out in the clearing behind the cabin. They had made it further than the others. There were also more cars parked around the back, hiding their numbers. It must have been a surprise party. The USA's family members had interrupted a boys' hunting trip to celebrate the new TV show. But where were the children? All the dead were adults, with the youngest being a clean-shaven man who lay broken over the torn couch. I glanced back at the table to see a keg of alcohol. Maybe it was a party for adults only. Maybe no children were invited. My heart sank as I spotted evidence to refute my theory. On an end table that hadn't been overturned lay a split juice box and one of those spinner things the young played with. I began my search anew, breathing deep of the foul stench around me, in a vain effort to detect the scent of living children. I moved into the adjoining kitchen with its large L-shaped island and bar stools. I immediately noticed a bar stool propped up against the door of the pantry. I rushed over to it and paused to sniff the air again. I could smell the vivid scent of children on the other side of the door. In a haste, I tossed the bar stool away and flung the door open. The ambient light from the kitchen revealed the huddled shapes of 6 children. They all began to scream their high-pitched screams. Maybe it was foolish of me to rip the door open and scare the already traumatized children, but I didn't care. I was so thankful to see their terrified, tear-stained faces. There were 6 of them, 3 girls and 3 boys. The oldest was a girl around 12 or 13, hugging all of them close, shielding them with her body. One of the boys looked the youngest at around 5, with the rest in between. I held up both of my hands, palms out, patting the air in a calming gesture. The screams continued for a little longer while I gently shushed them. Their wide eyes began to blink as they slowly realized I was a man, not a monster. I knelt down in the doorway and put a smile on my face. "I'm here to help, don't worry. I'm here to take you away from this scary place." I explained in the calmest voice I could muster. The children just stared back at me, and the oldest girl shot daggers at me with her eyes. "Who are you?" the oldest girl demanded from me. She was pretty, with a face full of freckles, jet black hair tied into pigtails, and a red dress with white polka dots. She also wore white knee-high socks and shiny black shoes. Her attire seemed out of place to me, but I couldn't be called an expert on what children wore these days. "I'm a good guy. I was called to come help all of you get back home," I said. The children were unfazed and unconvinced. They just stared at me huddled closer together, the oldest scanning me up and down with distrust. "I'm here to stop the bad thing that scared all of you. I'm going to." I paused, trying to think of something convincing and reassuring. "I'm going to take the monster to jail, where it can't hurt you," I finally said. "Are you a cop?" asked the smallest boy, pulling his thumb out of his mouth for just that instance. "Yes," I smiled. "Something like that." I offered a hand for them to take. "But first I will make sure all of you are somewhere safe." I could take them downstairs and set up magical wards to keep them safe. It would take time, but I needed to secure the survivors before I challenged Chizar. "We're not going anywhere," said Pigtail Polka Dot Girl, interrupting my train of thought. "We don't know you. We are going to wait until our parents come for us," she finished in a stern voice. I was impressed by her bravery. The other kids seemed to be in shock, but she had pushed through the fear to protect them and stand up for them. She held herself like she was just standing up to a teacher at school, and not in a life or death situation. I would have to handle her differently. Please understand me. "My name is Lock, like a door lock," I said, with another attempt at a calming smile. Mimicking the correct emotions had always been hard for me, but I had to try. "I know your parents, or at least I know the leader of USA. They hired me to come and rescue you if Bigfoot showed up." It was a lie, but I would say anything to get them to listen. "We will stay here," Pigtails demanded, her eyes intense. "What is your name, sweetie?" I asked gently. The girl looked disarmed. She quickly looked down at one of the younger girls and said, "I'm Kayla." The younger girl's face brightened up and she announced, "My name is Kayla too." She smiled up at Pigtail Polka Dot Kayla with excitement. How cool was it to meet an older kid with the same name? "Well, Kaylas," I paused as I heard the approaching footsteps of something outside. "Stay in here while I make sure everything is okay," I rushed, saying. I quickly closed the pantry door and placed a rune stone in front of it. The stone would magically mask the scent of the children. I spun around quickly to stalk to the middle of the living room where I prepared for whatever was running towards the front door. I used my thumb on my right hand to rub the enchanted ring on my index finger. This woke up its potent magic to be on standby for use. All I had to do was grunt the right syllable to activate it. My left hand pulled out a long knife coated in a paralyzing toxin. All I had to do was nick Chizar to freeze him up for hours. I could take him in alive if he let me. As the footsteps drew near, I realized they were too quiet to be Chizar, and I caught the scent of a human. I quickly sheathed my knife behind me as the man crossed the doorway of the cabin. It was another bearded man in camo. His bald head and face were bleeding from multiple tiny cuts, and his eyes bulged wildly. He leveled his shotgun at me and racked the slide, ejecting a perfectly good shell. He must have been running through the woods, and he was so scared he was double pumping his weapon. "Who the hell are you?" the man yelled, more in fear than in confrontation. "I work for the park," I said calmly. "I'm here to get you and the children to safety." "The children?" he asked loudly. "Where is my son? Where is he?" "They are safe in the pantry. I will help all of you," I assured him. "Now, will you please stop pointing that gun at me?" I saw the man's eyes soften as he realized I wasn't a threat. He lowered the shotgun and let out a sigh mixed with a sob. "We have to hurry, partner. The Squatch is close." The man spoke before he was interrupted, giving a sudden grunt. I saw a glimmer of movement behind him, over his shoulders. The man's arms whipped out to either side, outstretched like the God-man Jesus looked in the paintings. His shotgun was flung into the corner of the room, as he stared at me in pure confusion and terror. It only took me a moment to realize what was happening. It was Chizar, and he had an invisibility spell equipped. As soon as I realized this, the magic of the spell was broken, and I saw the monster with my own eyes. The gigantic Chizar stood behind the squirming man, towering over him. Chizar had a hold of both of the smaller man's arms and his own giant mitts. The man's arms were being pulled to the breaking point outwards. Chizar easily began to lift the crying man into the air. The muscles of the monster's hairy arms flexed like corded steel. The poor man looked up to see the grinning face of Chizar the Cruel, looking back down at him. "Does the little monkey see me now?" Chizar asked in English. He waited to see the look of terror on the man's face, before yanking both of the man's arms off in a fantastic explosion of blood and violence. The sickening snap of bone, followed by the ripping sound of flesh and tendons, turned my stomach. Worse was the horrid guttural yelp the dying man let out, before he thudded face first to the decorative carpet, blood raining around him. Chizar stood to his full height of 8.5 feet tall, a crooked smile across his wide face. His right eye glazed over and scarred from our last fight, while the other was a sickly yellow. His brown fur was coarse and matted with dirt, with multiple pouches and belts decorating his body. A giant lumpy sack was hanging under his arm for easy reach. I could see the red liquid leaking from it, and the bulging shapes of the organs stuffed inside. It was filled with the hearts Chizar had ripped out of these people. I put on a terrified face and held my hands out defensively. I looked a lot different from the last time we'd fought, and I wanted him to think of me as scared human prey. All I had to do was get him once with my poison dagger. Chizar was still holding the dead man's dismembered arms, like some sort of bloody-ended clubs. He tossed them both to the ground with a wet thump. He looked right at me and gave a croaking laugh. "You can drop the act, Locke," the grungy monster told me. "I've had your scent this whole time. I knew you would come." The monster tapped his nose, and then his good eye. "Let me see the real you, Clankin. Not this hummy suit you are wearing." "I'm not your Clankin, Chizar. You were exiled," I spat. But I would give Chizar what he wanted. I stood straight and grabbed a hold of the illusion crystal I had activated. A simple word from me deactivated its magic, and the false image of me disappeared to reveal my true self. Instead of a well-built black man in my mid-30s, with a black trench coat and combat boots, I grew in size and my shoulders widened. Where Chizar's fur was ratty and light brown, mine was sleek and jet black. My clothes disappeared to show my bandolier, and multiple pouches strapped upon me, much like Chizar. A silver circular disc hung from a chain on my neck. It was my clan's marking. It was a symbol of my station. Chizar the Cruel, the Council of Clans has demanded an audience. I am thereby charged to perform the duty of the clan, Clan Bayot. I am compelled to take you back to be held responsible for your atrocities, and for your insult to the tranquility and honor of the realm. I recited with practice, like I had 100 times before with other criminals. Chizar just stared back flatly. I remember the speech from last time, Chizar said as he pointed at his foggy eye. You gave me this. Now I want my payback. I cracked my neck and rotated my shoulders. Glad to be in my true form again. Glad to be a Sasquatch. I stood 7 feet tall, short for our kind, and Chizar stood 8.5 feet tall, tall for our kind. But I was not worried. I had bested him in combat before. Only his magic tricks helped him escape capture. Oh, Chiz, you are always the fool, I taunted. The council also sanctioned your killing if you resisted. I looked around at the mangled human bodies around me. Truth is, I continued, I had my mind made up to kill you a while ago. At least now I won't have to lie in my report about you fighting back. I forgot you were such a Hume lover, Chizar growled back. You are at a severe disadvantage this time. I heard the pantry door open behind me, and I half turned to see Polka Dot Kayla approaching. Get back, Kayla, I said, not taking my one eye off of Chizar. Loving Humies is your weakness, Chizar said before busting out in an awful laughter. I turned to look fully at him, not understanding his sudden mirth. That's when I heard the faint swish of my poison knife being pulled out of its sheath. An instant later, I felt the knife poking against my neck. An evil laughter echoed Chizar's own laughter from over my shoulder. I suddenly got the scent of another Sasquatch, a female Sasquatch. That's when I fully realized my mistake. The little girl was a Sasquatch in disguise, sent to control the children, like the Pied Piper from your human fairy tales. Chizar was never alone. He had a mate. I must go on patrol now. I have some things I must check up on. I hope you aren't angry that I intentionally kept my identity a secret until the end. I wanted to step you into my world slowly. I'll be back soon with the end of this case. Humans have been in the dark for too long. It's time for everyone to know the horrors out there, preying upon you.